Looks like it is upcoming on YouTube, right?
Let's see.
Good evening, everybody. This is a live fundraising hurricane stream, and we are going to be going over the science behind this storm. I've got Chris Hall here with me, just making sure that we are live really quick.
Yep, I got it
Yep,
good on my end.
looks like we're live on Bookface. Is it live on YouTube yet?
Yep, it's live on YouTube.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I've got Gizmo here as well. And we've also got Edgar that's going to be joining us. He's at a high school football game right now.
There he
Hey,
is.
what up? What up?
And this is Chris Hall from 606 Storm Chasing, bottom left. He has been on the ground with the recovery effort since the beginning when Helene came in down in Florida. And then he was up in Western North Carolina donating his time and resources, helping everybody out. And chased Hurricane Milton after bringing down an RV from Maine for some officers in need. Just incredible stuff down there. And now, Chris, you are just in Southwest Florida, right?
Yep, we just now left out of Naples, heading back up towards Tampa, and we're eventually going to stop tomorrow and stock up and get a car full of wintertime stuff to like winter clothing, blankets, stuff like that to take back to Western North Carolina.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there's going to be a couple 2 to 3 inches of snow up at some of those higher peaks, including like Rowan Mountain, some of the higher crests of the Appalachians. So they're definitely going to need some of those new supplies, blankets, warm clothes up there, food as well. So you're headed back up north, right, toward North
Yeah.
Carolina?
Yep, we're going to be, once we check out from the hotel in the morning, we're going to be heading back north and hopefully make it into Asheville by 5 o'clock tomorrow evening.
Wow, from one disaster to another, going back and forth. And during this live stream, this is a fundraiser, everybody. So you can see the link in the description. You can make a tax-deductible donation to that link, and that's going to go directly to people like Chris, who is on the ground helping out. We're going to have Shawn Hendrix join us as well later. He's involved with Mr. Beast, and met him up in Western North Carolina. He's been up there delivering generators as well as Starlinks. And I joined you for one day delivering those Starlinks up in Western North Carolina, up near Spruce Pine. And the damage is just terrible to see up there. And then we had Hurricane Milton coming back behind it. Helene making landfall as a Category 4, having the Fujiwara interaction. You had that closed upper level low just upstream, and then it pulled it due north right up into Western North Carolina, greater than 30 inches of rainfall up at the crest of the Appalachians. And that created debris flows, mudslides, all kinds of problems that were flowing downhill and impacting communities and causing significant loss of life. So we're going to break down the science of those two outbreaks. We're going to talk to Chris about the what the conditions are like on the ground and the recovery effort. And this is just a big time fundraiser that we are doing right on the backs of Hurricanes Milton and Helene. We're also going to break down the tornado outbreak. So you can see that image that I have right behind you. That basically shows that dry slot, basically an elevated mixed layer that got pulled off the Mexico plateau as a hurricane formed, pulled that dry slot right off. And at the nose of that dry slot, that's where the tornado outbreak happened. You really need that dry over moist profile to get supercells. That's why you never see a supercell storm that's embedded in the milk unless you're in Dixie Alley out there. But that's why they're a lot of times in clear blue sky, because you really need that dry over moist type of a profile. But we are going to share all the science between these two storms. We're also going to show you that these are not man-made, these hurricanes. There is a little bit of weather modification that's happening out there, probably with hail suppression and probably a little bit with rainfall. But to generate a storm like this, so many people would have to be in on that secret. That's probably one thing that we could rule out. But definitely the people dominating the recovery effort are the citizen recovery effort, private citizens, and people like Chris Hall, Shawn Hendrix, and the Cajun Navy, United Cajun Navy. And here at Team Dominator Storm Recovery as well, we are just trying to distribute resources to those people that are on the ground helping. And we have people like Mercury One that are out there as well. People like Chris Hall, Shawn Hendrix going up on their own dime and helping out. And one thing about Chris is every single natural disaster, he is on the ground, whether it's cooking burgers, bringing in supplies, doing both of that.
Yeah. What a beast.
We try to make the best burgers. You know, we come from Kentucky. We're known for fried chicken, right? But I like to fix a Kentucky style burger.
What's
They're a
that
little
like?
different.
What's a Kentucky style burger like?
Well, if you have the right ingredients, and just right medium rare burger, fully cooked but medium rare, just a little hint of pink, a little hint of barbecue sauce, good melted cheese, not the little cheap plasticky feeling cheese, the good melted cheese over a burger. You bite into it and it's just like juices dripping out of it. Oh, that's a good burger.
You're making me hungry, man. I'm a fat kid. You can't be talking like that.
That is a good burger. And those are the burgers that you've been cooking for people down there in Southwest Florida with Marco Patriots, right?
Yep. And we had some barbecue as well this time around. So we were fixing some barbecue chicken, some pulled chicken. Let's see what else we had. We had cheeseburgers, hot dogs. We even had baby back ribs that somebody had donated for us to cook.
Wow.
Dang.
That's incredible. How many meals did you cook down there for everybody?
In total, at one feeding station, it was over 2,000 in 2 days.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow. Yeah. And now you're headed back up to North Carolina. Are you going to do more cooking and bringing in some winter clothes for this big snow coming up?
Yeah, we're going to try to be up there for a couple of days, especially it's getting down into the 30s there, especially in the valleys at night. And I'm right now, if you keep looking at me, I'm looking down. A state trooper from North Carolina is talking to me right now. He's saying that people are living in tents and that it got down to 34 degrees just a couple of nights ago.
Wow. Yeah, you can feel it out there. It feels crisp. I'm in Travelers Rest, just south of the zone near North Carolina, South Carolina border. Thankfully, we avoided the worst of it here at my mom and sister's place. They flooded out, but then just over the escarpment, it was a war zone up there. Asheville, up towards Spruce Pine, a lot of those smaller communities up there. Chris, what have you seen on the ground up in Western North Carolina throughout your journey with the recovery effort?
You know, we talked about this exact same thing nearly that's been 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago now. We had the Eastern Kentucky floods. And I thought personally that was going to be the worst disaster I'd ever seen flooding wise. No, well, boy, was I bad wrong. But you get in Western North Carolina, you see the pictures of I-40, you see all the stuff on the news, you see it firsthand. Oh my gosh, it's horrible. Wow. I mean, it's the town of Swannanoa. You go in through there. Luckily, we had the police escort trying to get to these towns, that other people can't really get into. So we're going through these places that really aren't even open. Like you're going over roads that used to be roads, and you're going down through there. There's houses literally slung around trees like a piece of plastic. Cars at the top of trees. I mean, oh my gosh. And it's even worse the further up that you go. So if you go up on the mountains and you have the waterways coming down beside the mountains, the roads are completely gone. You can still see pieces of houses floating down the hills beside the roadways, and you just see people walking around trying to find what they can that's left of their house. And I mean, there's not much that you can really do for them, but I mean, you can try the littlest a bit, whether it's bringing the wintertime clothes, bringing them hot food. Just, I mean, the little things. I went through this in 2022. It's the little things that matter. You can rebuild everything. I mean, your heels, your wounds will heal. Mm-hmm. But the little things are what matters on a true natural disaster. You lose everything. It's going to take a while to rebuild, but you will get back to it. But you are going to need the help. You will need the help. I know a lot of people, they're stubborn. They're mountain people. They like to be on their own. But you will need the help. I'm just here to tell you firsthand. Don't be afraid to take the help. That's what a lot of the people on the ground they're there to help you. They're there not to just be there. Hey, taking pictures. We're not here to make money off of you. We're here to bring stuff to you and be a lending hand to the best we can.
Yeah, and you went through that flooding disaster there in Kentucky firsthand. I mean, you were impacted by it. Like your house was destroyed, right? You guys had to escape those waters. So, I mean, you know what it's like going through a flooding disaster in that complex terrain there in the Southern Appalachians. And yeah, the Fujiwara interaction I've got pulled up there. You had that upper level low just upstream, and it just slingshotted that tropical cyclone right up into western North Carolina, and it squeezed out all of the rainfall. You can see the 850 millibar winds that I'm looking at, and that's because the terrain is so much higher up there, and all those winds were just sitting up there cranking just above the ground. And as soon as that ran into the mountains, it brought those near 100-mile-per-hour gusts right up to the crest. And you see those crazy viewpoints up at the Blue Ridge Parkway of like 100% tree loss. I mean, it looks crazy up there, and like
Wow.
you can't access those people. And I know you mentioned up in Rowan Mountain, just they're supposed to get 2 to 3 inches of snow, but this is all caused by that predecessor rain event too. So you had the upper level low coming in, a string of tropical moisture out ahead of that system, and that set the stage for it by bringing those river levels up. And then the arrival of the hurricane there, by the time that got there, there was already that flooding happening. And let me pull in the local man. A little extra, I think.
Howdy.
How's that?
Yep.
It sounds like there's might be a little.
Yeah, got a pretty bad echo.
We keep that on.
Yeah, let me take a look.
Might be a little bit.
Now we just can't hear you.
Weather. We're gonna have Shawn Hendrix on here, and this is Brian O'Toole had a baby, so that's why we're not using our regular live stream here. We are using a restream option, but we were going to break down some of the science with this thing. You saw that Fujiwara interaction that happened with that Hurricane Helene. Thankfully, we didn't have the same with Milton, or it would have probably brought it right back up toward that same area. But you can see the predecessor rain. Just look at all that rain ahead of Helene as it was making landfall as a Category 4. And you were up in Perry as well, right, Chris?
Yeah, we were just north of Perry when it made landfall.
Yeah, and I kind of wish, you and I have been talking about it, we wish that we stayed in western North Carolina and kind of played the inland flooding a little bit, worked that and live streamed it and increased awareness for that flooding event happening. But you can see it that Category 4 hurricane coming ashore there in northwest Florida. And this isn't all about North Carolina, but they also had a lot of damage down in Cedar Key to Keaton Beach down in northwest Florida. Just total destruction with a tsunami-like wall of water, a 20-foot storm surge coming in there to northwestern Florida, Keaton Beach. I know we were trying to get in a stilt home there on Keaton Beach, but not much to be gained when you're in the pitch black in a stilt home with no data. You can't stream or make it live or anything. But Edgar and Local Man and I were down there in the area. And then Chris, you went straight up to North Carolina, didn't you?
Yeah, we tried to play around with the eye as it approached near 75, and once you hit 75, it was continuous trees. I-10 going over to 75, tried to shoot north. I think we made it to just outside of Atlanta that night, and 75 was pretty much blocked. So we got a hotel, tried to sleep for a little bit, and the next day we went up to Newport, which is northwest of Asheville over in Tennessee, just maybe 30, 40 miles east of Pigeon Forge. Big tourist area there, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. And yeah, oh my gosh, you go there and roads are still blocked off. You know, everybody's just now setting up the EOCs, the point of distributions. And we get into town and we stop in Knoxville. We're like, hey, we're just going to grab some pizzas. We're straight off the bang, just be like, take it here. And we make it to Newport, and the hospital there in Newport had no water. They're running on generator power. They haven't had anything hot to eat since the hurricane hit. So we took them some pizzas there, and also around the fire departments and police departments there, just to make sure that they were fed, because there was not a lot of food flowing in there just yet. And that's whenever we started to make the track into Asheville. And somehow, by the grace of God, we found an open road. It didn't even show on the map if it tells you anything. It was a little side road. I remember the name of it. It was like Old Asheville Highway. Really curvy, narrowy road that took you over in North Carolina, big time mountain. Went over through there. You know, we had to dodge a couple of trees, stuff like that, but Next thing you know, we end up in Asheville, and we're at this we're at this hotel. First hotel we see, it's a DoubleTree. That you know where that is, Reed. That's where you parked your car that day. And we got there, and the first thing you know, we walk into the hotel. We're asking this lady. I was like, "Do you all have any rooms for the night?" I was like, "Yeah, this is probably where we're staying. Do you have any rooms?" She's like, "No, honey, I'm sorry, we don't." And we went back out, and was like, "Okay, well, we'll have to search for Plan B." And then we see the state troopers, all the state troopers, I'm assuming, that were called in for backup and assistance. They were all standing there at that DoubleTree at the time, and they're all outside. They're trying to make calls, to try and call their family, or trying to just get communications with base, just to figure out, hey, where do I go? What do I need to do? Because if you have no service, no nothing like that, you have no GPS. And if you're not from there, if you're from Eastern North Carolina, you're not going to know much about Western North Carolina, especially in the mountain terrains. So that's when we set up our personal Starlinks there. It's like, hey, here's an idea. We've been using it all day. Let's do this. And that's instantly when the idea popped in my head. Hey, what if we tried to get Starlinks and try to set them up around, so people can reconnect, because there's zero communication. The only thing that worked for probably 3 or 4 days, even while I was there, was FirstNet with AT&T. And to this day, I still don't even know if Verizon works there. I know Verizon didn't work at all the entire time we were there. But we done that, and then we started to bring pizzas, and we actually went to Travelers Rest the day after or the morning after we went there, and picked up like 50 pizzas. And the Domino's there hooked us up with a killer deal. I'll tell you right now, like 50 pizzas, and they're like, hey, we've got to hook you up. We know how hard it is up there. Some of us even have family up there, and they gave me the killer deal on those pizzas, helped me load them up in the Wagoneer we had, and we got back up there and tried to make sure we fed as many people as we could. But yeah, I mean, you always see the good and the bad. The good definitely showed during this disaster more than the bad. You always have your bad egg here and there, but there was definitely more good than bad this time.
And when did you meet up with Shawn Hendrix? He's joined us. How's it going, Shawn?
Good. Yeah. I got kind of looped in because y'all squad was dropping some uh 30 Starlinks into Asheville and was just trying to find anybody on the ground. And me and Chris were kind of the only ones up there. And so I ended up connecting with him and said, we got Starlinks. I saw Nick and him both tweeting that they needed them. And we met up at the Asheville airport. And if it wasn't for the highway patrols that he was rolling with, I think we may have lost those Starlinks, because when we got to the airport, like, hey, write your name on this piece of paper and we'll tag whatever comes in for you and put it in this room, and then we'll release it to you. And I was like, yeah, no shot. There's no way I get those back. And the highway patrols that were with Nick and Chris basically said, we're going on the tarmac, and they took us with them. And the airport couldn't really do much. And so they walked us out to the airplane, and we loaded them, and they helped us get them out the back gate. And we were able to immediately start deploying them. Shortly after that, Verizon would have a global or a nationwide outage. So even the Verizon emergency support towers would go down. And that's when we all went into action, deploying Starlinks, basically getting fire stations and emergency command centers back online. It was a crazy few days for sure. Yeah, I'll never forget that. It was definitely how we kind of linked up. Matter of fact, Chris, I had nowhere to stay up there, and he was so kind to put me up in the Airbnb that they happened to score, which was definitely nice. Better than sleeping in the back of my truck.
Wow, are you still up there, or did you finally head back home?
I'm back today. We got snow coming soon, so I'm back here buying heaters. Got a whole trailer full of cold weather gear. We had a mission for some goat milk baby formula, so we're trying to meet very specific needs right now. And right now it's heaters, cold weather gear, and this formula, which I posted on Twitter, or X. Sorry, Elon, X, and said, hey, we need this formula. It's about $2,500 worth of formula. And my supporters on there filled that order on Amazon wish list in less than an hour. So I mean, I was just blown away by people's generosity through this. And another thing, that somebody sent me a message while we were up there and said, "Hey, I know it's not a lot, but I just sent 500 in Venmo." I'm like, first of all, 500 is a lot, and secondly, that 500 let me buy one more generator.
Wow.
That generator would then go a few hours later and put 100 people back on well water. And so it's just like that one donation of $500 literally changed 100 households quality of life immediately. So I always tell people, it's like, it doesn't matter how big, like even just reposting and replying and just sharing the message could lead it to someone who drops $500 in to help, which then gets 100 people back on well water. So guys, every little bit is just massive what these guys are doing.
Yeah, and the fundraiser here, we have a link in the description. You can also donate to Chris and Shawn's individual Venmos as well. But every cent that we have that comes in to the nonprofit, it's tax deductible. Every cent is going to Chris, Shawn, and they are making sure that that goes directly to people that are in need. And you can see that rainfall map right behind me. You had a high risk from the Weather Prediction Center from Northwest Florida all the way up into the mountains. And we've always talked about here in Western North Carolina that a mega disaster is when a hurricane comes right up into the Southern Appalachians. It squeezes out all the moisture, complex terrain, downs all the trees, so people can't get in there. And it ended up turning into the Katrina of the Southern Appalachians. And
Yeah.
goodness for you guys, Shawn.
Well, I think the thing I've seen up there too is this isn't a rich area. There are rich areas up there, but these are people that are living paycheck to paycheck. So I have one guy who's living on $412 a month of Social Security. How does that guy rebuild? Right. And so this hit a very poor area. And a lot of people were self-sufficient, living off the land, hunting, fishing, and all that was taken away from them as well. So this disaster will continue to impact people for a very, very long time.
Yeah, it's sad to see those beautiful areas up there too, and all the leaves are stripped, and now the fall color season too is taking a hit. I've heard 90 to 100% loss and revenue up there. This area is so dependent on the fall color season, so they need all the help they can get. So if you guys are seeing this, please share the stream, share the link. And,
Yeah, and another thing that's been interesting is, you can go still see the fall colors. The major freeways are open if you're coming in from the south or the east. Go up there. I saw a sign the other day. A lot of towns said, "What we need is visitors." Right? I know there's a lot of places that we don't need disaster tourism, but a lot of places are open for business. And a matter of fact, I just posted about that Chimney Rock has set up a thing with an equestrian center. So all the stores in Chimney Rock can open up like pop-up shops inside this equestrian center down the road so they can still have holiday sales. Go shop up there this holiday. They're ready for visitors in a lot of these towns. Push that money in there, tip like crazy, and do your shop local, shop small, and help these people.
Yeah, that's another thing that you just reminded me of. A lot of things people don't know. A lot of Christmas trees come from
Yeah.
North Carolina. So this Christmas, if you need a new Christmas tree or you just want a new Christmas tree for the heck of it, buy one from a local person in North Carolina because that would help out tremendously, especially this year.
Another thing that you can do is call the local fire stations, talk to their dispatch, and then find out how you can order food for the firefighters. And then order food from a local restaurant and feed those local firefighters. If you're sitting in California, Nevada, Oklahoma watching this and you want to do something yourself, like these guys, I mean, it just shows how much the people support what they're doing. I know we're online and we're on social media and everybody's, oh my gosh, doing so great. It's such wonderful work. But I worked along guys who worked 10 times harder, guys that lost everything. There was a firefighter, Bruce, who I interviewed, watched his business and his house wash down the river and has been up there working 12 to 16 hours a day and literally has nothing to his name. Like those guys, like it just blows my mind how much our local first responders stepped up to help in this disaster.
yeah, and you went into Chimney Rock recently as well, and
Yeah.
they're trying to divert the river, right?
They did. They actually diverted it. It was
Wow.
funny. It actually caused quite a bit of controversy because I said they're going to put the river back where it's supposed to be. I triggered some people. I've got like 3 million views on that clip of people arguing
Oh
that
man.
nature goes where it wants. I mean, they were very upset that I would dare say put the river back where it's supposed to be. But like the DOT guy said it the best. He's like, the river's in my road. I'm moving the river off my road and putting my road back. And yeah, I get what people are saying. Like water does what water wants to do, but this is a once in a 14,000 year storm. Was something I heard. I think it's okay for people to try to rebuild. I don't think we need to let the water just consume that town for no reason, you know. But yeah, they got the river rediverted, and they're that question is, will they ever rebuild in that spot though? Right? They don't have that for certain. These people that own that land may not ever be able to rebuild there. That's something we'll see. But they did put the river back where it was originally. I'll speak a little clearer this time.
How did that process go? How did they do that? Just move boulders?
So when we got there on day one, they were basically, I mean, there must have been 200 dump trucks lined up going in there. This is a big reason they weren't letting people up there. It was not lithium mining or conspiracy theories. There was 200 dump trucks going up a 1-lane road. You have no business being on that road.
Wow.
And so they would dump a load. The bulldozer would push it into the river, and then excavators. These excavator drivers are incredible, by the way. It's like an extension of their arm, and they were basically pushing rock into the riverbed to rebuild the roadbed, and they would just slowly push, edge the river back into its banks with these rocks, and then they finally just pushing material in, truck after truck of material to push the river back into its. Once it got back into its banks, that's where it wants to flow. The natural riverbed's there. They just had to re-divert it into that, and it was kind of into story. I was blown away. They did it like in 8 days or something crazy.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. And is there much left of the town, or is the whole town just destroyed?
I would say 90%. I think one building didn't sustain damage other than the fire station. So half the buildings are probably gone, and pretty much all of them have sustained some sort of damage. It's historic. I mean, the winery was 30 feet above the riverbed, so you're talking a 30-foot river rise, and it took away 100 yards of dirt to get to it. So this is, I mean, it's pretty catastrophic. But yeah, there's not much untouched. I stood inside the businesses. I'm 6'2", and the door frame came to here because I was on that much mud. What would typically be a 7-foot door frame was now 5.5 feet off the ground.
Wow. Do you feel like the attention's starting to go away from the recovery effort at all? I mean, we had another natural disaster come into Florida with Milton, and now that that's over, do you feel like the attention's starting to move away a little bit?
I do. I definitely do. I definitely see it. A part of it is that so you have these waves in disaster, right? There's not even enough bottled water to drink for the firefighters. And then now we don't have a place to put all the water 5 days later, right? And everybody says, "Oh my gosh, we got too much stuff." And then the tap turns off, and in 2 weeks we're like, "We don't have any bottled water," right? So I think we're in that phase where there's too much stuff in there, and there's not enough workers to get it up into the mountains to the people that need it. And it's also hard to serve these communities. It's not like Florida where it's fairly flat and easy to get to. These people live in the mountains. It's difficult to get to them on a best day. So that final mile for these disaster centers, these operation centers, it's tough to find people that can hike things into the mountain day after day after day. And also too, that just the discussion is, at what point do these people need to come out? Right? It's like, there's not going to be power for 6 months here. But then the other question is, how do you come out if you have no money? Like, what do you come out to? Where do you go? What do you do? Right? Your house and everything you owns there's no roads to you. So we're kind of at that weird spot where it's like that last effort's the people in most need, but it's also the biggest effort. Yes, the tension's definitely fallen away because Asheville's kind of get back and running. The freeways are getting back up and running. It seems like life is normal until you get 5 or 6 miles up into the hills.
Dang. Yeah, and some of those images that are coming up from the crest up there above the Blue Ridge showing 100% tree loss. I mean, some people are just now getting contact, right? They've been stuck up there for weeks.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's not fake news. They're not getting power for 6 to 8 months. That's not a conspiracy theory. That is from Duke Energy. 6 to 8 months with no power in some of these areas.
Yeah, and Chris, I know that you were down there firsthand too, and speaking on some of those conspiracy theories. I mean, the rescue effort was initially dominated by the citizens and people like yourself, and then FEMA supplies came in as well. But it must have been pretty intense in there dealing with some of those theories that were coming up, and a lot of times these hard to read areas or hard to reach areas, you don't know exactly what's happening in there. I think it does seem like some are true, some aren't true, and kind of like the average of everything ends up kind of being reality. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I mean, especially being there on the ground and you go into some of these towns. I'll tell you this every story. If it wasn't for us having the great support of the West North Carolina State Police, we wouldn't have
Yeah.
got half the work done as we did. And they were taking us, they're seeing the stuff firsthand. They know the contacts, like, hey, you need to go here, need to go here. And we get up, I think it was Black Mountain, North Carolina. We get in there and, everybody's saying everything's gone. There's no way to get in here. There's nothing rolling in here. We get in there and yeah, supplies were rolling in. They're requesting certain things, but there was a lot of supplies rolling in, actually to a point where it was a day after we went into Black Mountain that they'd shut off all supplies intake. Because once word gets out that a certain area like Black Mountain needs something, it's fulfilled in 24 hours. And back to the conspiracy theory stuff. You see a lot of stuff floating around online like, well, this was man-made. We're going to throw it up to North Carolina as a hurricane. Stuff like that's going to happen, especially where that made landfall, connects with the winds, pulls it up right up those mountains, riding right up the Appalachians. I mean, you get that up there, not to mention all the winds at the top of that mountain is only going to enhance and push down into those valleys. And that honestly may have pushed the water a little heavier down too. All those winds way up on top of the mountain pushing all that water down, that may have been a leading factor to what catastrophic flooding did go on, because all of that water has to go somewhere, but especially if it has something to force it down, it's probably going to make it 3 to 4 times worse.
I saw telephone poles snapped that you would see like in like Midwestern straight winds, right? There was no trees that knocked them over. These telephone poles were snapped from wind.
Oh yeah.
And I was blown away that the wind was that strong to push over to break telephone poles right in the middle.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of tornadic activity embedded within those convective bands
Yeah.
too, and I've seen it happen on the western slopes of the Black Hills where you get a supercell that approaches, and then it's like the terrain comes up to the tornado, and then you just get a blowdown of a tornado event. So that probably happened.
That's what it looked like.
The band, yeah, and every eastern slope completely knocked down, and back to the conspiracies. These hurricanes are not man-made. There is a little bit of weather modification that happens with like hail suppression. A lot of times you'll see the aircraft trying to make some planes smaller. But it's possible to get a hurricane that ramps up like this in the late season. We saw it with Hurricane Michael, especially a compact system like Hurricane Milton, which dropped down to 897 millibars, becoming the 5th strongest hurricane in the Atlantic Basin ever. And you had Hurricane Helene just before that, historic in its own unique right, coming up into the southern Appalachians, tornadic activity, blowdown event. But I mean, you can't prepare for an event like that, can you? That happens once in 1,000 years.
No, there's no prepping for that. That's the thing, is what can people do better? Like, you can't put this on the people, right? You can't say they shouldn't have built their houses there, right? This was all perfect. Anybody would have built in these locations. This was fine. You can't prep and plan for the 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 year storm. And I see a lot of the blame kind of being shifted, like, well, they shouldn't have built their houses there. I mean, you mean 40 feet above the riverbed? Like,
Yeah, the natural place to put roads is right in those beds too.
Yeah. I guess we just won't live in the mountains anymore if we're going to have that rule set.
I saw that, and people are saying you shouldn't live there. You should have never built here. For instance, I saw a house that was every bit of 50 foot up on the side of the mountain, well away from the water. But the water had so much force coming off of that mountain, and the water was so high coming off of the mountain. With the force of that water, it had lifted it up so high that it just took the stilts completely right out from under it. I mean, 50 foot up on the side of the mountain, mudslide coming off below it, it's just going to tear the house down anyway. There's no way to prepare for that. I mean, it's ridiculous that you tell somebody you can't live there to begin with. I mean, if you ask me, it's a free country. You live there if you want, but that had absolutely no case of being there. I mean, 50 foot up on the hill, pretty much, I live right beside of a creek bed back home. I want to live there. I love seeing the creek. You know, we went through it 2 years ago. You seen the creek turn into a river, but that's stuff you got to expect. But especially if you're 50 foot up on a hill and water goes down like that, it's just like I-40. If
Yeah.
something wasn't supposed to be built there, I-40 wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, right.
And it
I
still
guess we'll
washed
just
away like it was nothing.
I guess we'll just get rid of I-40, right?
I-35 first, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Brutal and Oakley. Yeah. Then I-4. What are they? And I-40 is not going to be rebuilt till 2025, right?
Yeah, they said today NCDOT just announced they awarded a $10 million contract
Wow.
to a company, and they're supposed to be done January 4th, 2025. So I'm honestly impressed it's that fast. And it's only 10 million bucks. It seems like a deal.
Yeah, and we're up to $3,000 raised already with this live stream. So thank you, everybody. And you can make a tax-deductible donation to Edgar's nonprofit in there. And we got Local Man Weather that is signed in from his studio.
Howdy. It's going good. Can't tell if you can hear me or not. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Yep, just here at the studio, jumping in on the live here. You all just keep donating. Really appreciate that, folks. And yeah, I don't even know what to say about all that stuff that went in North Carolina. I mean, so today they said that road they're gonna target trying to get it done by early January. I-40.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's insane.
And I-26 is later, right? Isn't that maybe March?
Yeah, I-26 is definitely a bigger problem going up north through Asheville.
Damn.
I haven't seen a date on that one yet.
Yeah. Did you guys meet up with any of the United Cajun Navy guys out there?
Oh, that's who I worked with mostly.
Fantastic. How was it working with those guys?
Great. It was. I rolled in. I saw them on Instagram because I was one person with 20 Starlinks. Chris had 10, and I'm like, and then when I realized what the need was, I need people to get these out, and I saw they had a helicopter, so I messaged them on Instagram, and they were like, you know what I mean, just like random guy messaging on Instagram. I got Starlinks, and he's like, come to Black Mountain Elementary. My guys are there. I haven't heard from them in hours, but they're there. He was actually back in Louisiana or somewhere. And so I went to Black Mountain Elementary, and there's all these guys there. They got helicopters. Verizon's down, so they can't have any comms. The very first thing we do is put a Starlink up and got United Cajun Navy back online.
Wow.
Matter of fact, they went live on their Facebook with me because just to show how well the Starlink worked. And then we'd use that helicopter and those guys to pack these other 20 Starlinks to all these fire stations way up in the mountains. But United Cajun Navy, I couldn't say more good things about those dudes. They care, they get it done, and it's a selfless thing. I mean, they're spending so just like a lot of us, they're spending their own money on fuel and food, and they don't. Nobody is complaining about it. They're happy to do it. They're happy to help their neighbors. So major props to United Cajun Navy.
Yeah, they love doing it. And I remember first hearing about them during Hurricane Katrina. So I was chasing that in 2005. I was 25 years old, maybe about close to Chris's age there. And that was a disaster. No cell phones or anything. You had similar stuff that was coming out too as well about kind of a lack of response. But the Cajun Navy rolled out there with boats, and now they've got aircraft, choppers. Doing great things. And you worked with Operation Airdrop too as well, right?
Me personally?
Did they kind of take over as like the administrative umbrella for all the choppers in the air?
I think so. I worked with so many different I have planes that show up to Greenville, North Carolina and pick up gear from me. I'm not sure who they're with. I think Sentinel Foundation's got a base that we're working with right now, which is the human trafficking guys that are out here helping. A lot of ex-military, and this guy rolls in with his personal plane. He said he had done 63 flights so far. And he's got a nice twin-engine Baron, and it's his personal plane. And him and his dad, Marshall and Roy, shout out to those guys, came to Greenville to get Starlinks and generators for me because I had the cash and the gear, but it was going to take me, 10 hours round trip to get it to them. And so I don't know who's running the air ops, but it is run well. When you can make a phone call and an airplane shows up an hour and 15 minutes later, that's wild.
Yeah, that's incredible. Man. Yeah, and the aerial attack to this disaster was so important because all the trees were down and couldn't get it. So
we had trees fall behind us. We got in to an area and trees, just because of the water, it was already leaning off the road, and then all of a sudden it just kind of slowly came back down. It's like a very unsafe environment, even once you get up there, to be on the roads.
yeah, landslides and everything happening, and now all these organizations are stretched between Florida and Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee. And here's Milton, of course. Look at that predecessor blob. I've been obsessed with this blob here, but I know a lot of conspiracy theorists too think that blob might have been man-made, but that blob was caused by an elevated mix layer, a dry slot, getting ripped off the Mexican plateau, wrapped around a compact tropical cyclone, probably even intensifying it, and it wrapped around that east nose, and you can see that blob. I bet there was a tornado outbreak over the open Gulf of Mexico the whole time, and by the time it got to Florida, all hell broke loose, didn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that. And so this relief effort's also for the tornado damage. I mean, some of the longest track tornadoes out there. I saw a stat that Florida, with like 152 tornado warnings, became number 2 all time for state tornado warnings behind the super outbreak of Alabama. So,
wow.
Wasn't there one on the ground for, what was it, 120 minutes? Is that like, which one was on the ground for over 2 hours?
That was the Clewiston, Florida tornado. That was on the ground for 70 miles. And that was only an I think that was only an EF1 that was on the ground for 70 miles.
that was one of the early ones that formed, right? South of Lake Okeechobee.
Yeah,
there.
that landed around Alligator Alley and shot north.
We remember seeing that on radar.
Oh, yeah. We saw them go, and we didn't have enough gas to chase them.
Yeah, we would have been out chasing them too, but everywhere you saw was already closed way ahead of the storm. No gas anywhere, and then eventually, once landfall hit after the matter, there was still no gas to be found unless you had it already in the car. So,
yeah, and here's that historic Hurricane Hunter recon flights as it was descending down to 897 millibars. Milton definitely reminded me a lot of Rita, how it bottomed out like below 900 millibars and kind of came in as that half a cane with a big time storm surge. But thank goodness it didn't curl off to the north and head up to Western North Carolina. But if you're just joining this live stream, we've got a donation link. It's a nonprofit, tax deductible donations there. And you can also donate directly to these guys. Shawn and Chris have been spending their own cash helping out in the recovery effort, and all they do is help out. So they go in there, spend every cent, generators, supplies, Starlinks. They're coming back with winter clothes now as well to Western North Carolina. Groups like Mercury One, Aerial Recovery Group are out there as well, still helping out too, but it's really the individuals too, citizen groups out there, and also a government response that's happening. But I know a lot of people probably, I think FEMA's role is more just to get people through the disaster so they can rebuild. But it's the citizen recovery effort, the private citizens out there that are raising money for the long haul for these folks, getting them going out there. And yeah, what do you think the recovery effort's going to look like over the next few weeks up there?
Talking to me?
Yeah, you are correct.
Yeah. I think it's just a lot of specific needs. Like you talk about FEMA, like I got a call today around noon. We need goat milk baby formula. We've got babies with colic. They need a special formula. It's like $50 a can. Can't find it anywhere. Like imagine asking FEMA for that.
Yeah.
Right? Like where would you even start? But we put a tweet out, like I said earlier, in an hour, fully filled, shipping in directly to Banner Elk. So I think what using that story is going to be meeting a lot of specific needs. You know, I'll be driving up and I'll see a couple $100 come into my Venmo. I'll stop at a hardware store and buy another heater. You know, because we're literally getting specific needs. We're helping people because we can be agile. Somebody could call me. When I wake up in the morning before I leave, I'll have a list of text messages of people needing certain things. I'll try to go fulfill those and then get it up there. And then we have the pilots, the same thing. We need emergency medicine. We need wound. You know, like Chris had a situation trying to find these wound stuffing bandages. You know, like very specific needs that the government's just not equipped to be that agile. And so the people on the ground are just going to have to help our neighbors, just like we would in the other situation. With as the needs arise, I think it's a long road to recovery because of the poverty levels of some of these areas. These aren't people that have, a lot of these people don't have a bank account where they can just go out and build a new house or buy a new trailer. Think of the cost per square foot of a home today versus the one they've lived in for 40 years.
Yeah.
Right? It's $200 a square right now to rebuild on a good day. Like, where do you how do you begin to rebuild on a fixed income when the cost of living is so high now? So it's going to be long. It's going to be long, and it's not going to be exciting. It's going to be just a lot of individual needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you have all the bacteria that develops in the mud and all that with the floods. Flesh-eating bacteria can be a real issue, like the clean outs of all the homes.
I got actually very sick after I left.
Really?
Yeah, it just something in my lungs, just fatigue. I ended up having to get on an IV bag for dehydration. It's definitely a rough environment up there, breathing that dust. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice,
Yeah, I
but
can.
there's definitely some nasty stuff in that. What I just don't even want to think about what I'm breathing, to be quite honest. But definitely something with being up there is. I'm not the only one that's had that story. I've talked to other people who come back and get sick from being up there.
Did you see any of that up there, Chris? Have you or in the Kentucky floods? Didn't a high school like football team or something get flesh-eating bacteria when they were cleaning up?
Yeah, there was, and then there was actually one boy during cleanup that actually died from that. He was helping clean up, and he ended up passing away from something that he caught in the floodwater. And going back to what Shawn said, long-term recovery wise, you got to think of all of these houses. You've seen the stories and stuff. A lot of these towns were built in the early 1900s. So you have these houses that are probably the same age as some of the stores downtown, built in 1908. They've been through the Great Flood of 1916 and countless other floods since then. And you have to make a decision now whether you're going to rebuild that again or you're going to tear it down and build from zero. Because, even if it was a one in a 14,000 year event, I mean, are you going to build back there? Like, is the economy in that area going to rebuild enough for you to sustain life there? And it's going back to the road situation. If you can't physically get the roads rebuilt back to where you're at, what are you supposed to do? I mean, you have very limited stores there to begin with that are open. You have some Lowe's stores, you have Walmarts and stuff, but as soon as those places open near the area, there's a line to get in at 8 o'clock in the morning, 100 people deep. So, I mean, even if you're an elderly person in the area and you're thinking to yourself, like, I mean, what can we even do? There's some groups down there, that's going to eventually help you out. They're going to try to help rebuild houses, stuff like that. But long term, man, I'll just tell you, it's going to be really rough trying to figure out if you just even want to rebuild, if it's even worth rebuilding in certain spots.
Well, yeah, imagine you take out a loan, an SBA loan for a business. Now you owe that loan back, and you have to hope people are going to show back up and spend the money so you can make your mortgage on your new building.
Yeah.
So it's like you lose everything, and then you go bankrupt. It's a tough call.
Yeah, it's rough. It's particularly rough up there with that terrain and everything as well. And it's an ugly part of the recovery effort that's going to continue here. And I'm trying to pull up some of these tornadic storms here on radar really quick, and then we'll take a look at some of those, the evolution of the tornado event with Hurricane Milton as it came in.
Hey guys, I'm gonna drop out because I gotta get up early to get on the road.
Okay, I hear you.
Thanks for having me. I need to get some sleep so I can drive 10 hours tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you
I'm
so
in the
much
same
for
boat.
hopping in. And if you want to talk about some of your plans for disaster response long term, too, go for it. I know that you've got some big plans ahead.
Well, they're trying to get some big brands on board with helping for the long term. Again, mostly specific need meeting. My goal is to keep focus on Western North Carolina as the news media drifts away, and to keep reporting on it so that people know what's going on in the recovery effort. But yeah, it's just doing as much as one person can. but trying to use my platform to get brands to come in and spend that brand money, which is much bigger than my money. So that is definitely part of it. I'm working with some a tractor company that may gift a skid steer to a children's home that they need for months just to start recovering. So it's a huge problem, but if I could just take a few bites of it and everybody else does the same, we'll get it eaten. We'll get it done. So I'm just going to focus on what I can do and just chip away at it the best I can. And that's the goal. And I basically, I post all this over at X. Is where you can see kind of the live daily updates of everything that's going on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you get some sleep and feel better.
Yeah, thank you.
And
bye, guys. Thanks.
Out there again. Never stop chasing. Never stop helping.
That's right. That's right.
Nice work. Thanks, Shawn.
Thank you.
So I've got that radar pulled up of the hurricane coming in. You guys stand by here. Chris, you got big plans as well. You're pretty much a one-man operation out there. A lot of times you're working with Marco Patriots. You're on Team Dominator now, streaming for us. Thank you so much for that. It's great to have a veteran presence out there. And you did a great job on that live stream. Thank you so much on that one. So what are your plans over the next few weeks in disaster recovery?
Yeah, I mean, back to what we started the stream off with, it's right now the immediate needs. It's going to be the wintertime clothing. It's going to be blankets, even down to sleeping bags, because, you know, some of the people aren't going to want to leave their house. There's no heat, maybe, you know, some portable heaters, some propane heaters sort of thing, sleeping bags, try to stay even a little bit warmer, blankets, jackets, hoodies, trying to think of some other things that we could take up there. It'll eventually get back in my head. I've got a list that we could take stuff up there, but we're going to stop and hopefully get a U-Haul trailer tomorrow and try to fill it up and go up and distribute it in the many places we can, like Black Mountain, Swannanoa, even down towards Rowan Mountain, even parts of Hendersonville. And then you have also, we can't, you know, forget about our friends that were hard hit up in Tennessee. You have even portions of Virginia. All those areas are in the same boat, you know, still trying to rebuild and recover from that. And then we also have our friends down here in Florida. You've seen pictures and videos out of Venice of sand to the rooftops.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, it's a serious question. How do you rebuild from that? Because I have never seen that before. I mean, like, does the salt water not eat all the wiring up in your house if it is that deep to the roof? I mean, what do you do at that rate? Just tear it down and rebuild it back?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, local man? I know your dad's in construction. What do you do? Just
I mean, anything electrical is done. A lot of that stuff that we saw, a lot of it is a write-off. I mean, as we all know, salt water is extremely destructive when it comes to especially anything electrical and the mold situation, because, you know, it's not dry down there in Florida. So you're going to have major mold problems. A lot of that stuff that we saw is going to be a write-off. If you've just had a little roof damage or stuff like that, or maybe even a tree falling on the side of a house just a little bit, you can fix that. But a lot of that stuff that got destroyed with the sand, like what we saw at Venice, where that sand just got pushed up 6 to 8 feet inside of homes. Unfortunately, those are done. You just get a bulldozer, you put it all in a pile, you ship it out, and then you see what you just go from there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I've got the tornadoes pulled up here. This is the Clewiston, the long track EF1, I think, right? And it was probably given an EF1 because there's nothing to be damaged.
Nothing out there, yeah.
Got another ripper starting to develop southeast of Bella Glade here. And we saw this happening. And I mean, if you're a storm chaser and you see these strong mesocyclones and these renegades out like this, it means it's probably time to pivot to tornado mode. We just didn't quite have enough gas to get out there. We were so focused on the inner core. But at this time, I think it was a category 4 there. Yep. And he had that clear slot, right? That elevated mix layer that wrapped around. Yeah, that's the elevated mix layer, basically like a banana of dry air aloft in the mid and upper troposphere. And this was critical for the tornadoes because it cleared out the skies here over southern Florida, allowed instability to build. You can see this little convective band even firing up against it, probably with the friction of the shoreline. But look at these little beans right there. Those are just nasty. And this was the beginning of the tornado outbreak, and they kept moving off to the north. Long trackers causing a bunch of damage up here. I know, Chris, that we accepted a podcast invite recently. It had some controversy, but we did it initially just because we agree to anything that'll raise funds for the victims. But then the OU Texas game was happening, and kind of started getting a little mass chaos. We didn't do a lot of research on it as well, and so that's what prompted our live stream here as we are breaking down the tornadoes. We're dispelling some conspiracy theories. We're talking about backspace recovery, and the fact is that the citizens, like Chris, were dominating the recovery effort, and they do just about every recovery effort. Chris, you were in Rolling Fork. You do tornadoes, floods. What is the worst damage you've ever seen? Is it this one?
When it comes to a flooding aspect of things, it was definitely Western North Carolina. When it comes to tornado damage, it was more than likely Rolling Fork, Mississippi, just because of how small and how historic that town was. And the scope of damage has just happened so quickly. And you know how close we were to it, Rita. I know you were there. You couldn't have been far from me. We were maybe a quarter of a mile, half a mile away from it, and you can hear the roars going in through town and it just ripping, shredding things apart right in front of us and just littering debris all around. And I think even me and you ended up turning into like a mobile ambulance and going all the way back to Vicksburg with people. And but that was probably one of the worst ones that I've experienced, and the worst flooding would have been Western North Carolina. Even now, there's still people missing in Western North Carolina, and you know it's turned from a search and rescue, unfortunately, to a search and recovery at this rate. So.
Yeah, and how? What about the tornado damage there in Eastern Florida? That usually gets recovered a little bit faster than flood damage, right? But it's still a long road to recovery up there too.
Yeah, you have a lot of power poles that have to be replaced and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about much road damage, you know, when it comes to that aspect, unless you're in the strongest of tornadoes where it just rips the blacktop apart. But yeah, that will more than likely be one of the priorities is tornado damage. That always gets cleaned up quicker than a flood would because you have to clean every single thing up in a flood. You have to clear the road. You have to get all the debris gone. Whether if you're over at a tornado damage, you literally just pick the debris up and you take it to wherever they take it to designate like a dump. But there's so much more complicated with flooding. You have to get your houses inspected. You have to see if your insurance even wants to pay to even try to rebuild the house. Then you got to decide, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to rebuild? Or are we just going to move on to something else? Then you have to worry about changing out all your electrical stuff. I mean, if you have, thankfully, I don't think there's many underground power lines. But if there was, you know, you have to change all of those wires out. Anything near ground level has to be changed out electrically because of all that salt water.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, water does a number. It does a number on the vehicles too. I know my Subaru had about 6 inches of salt water mixed with a little bit of sewage, a little bit of tang in there. So I was able to vacuum it out. Yeah, it smelled pretty bad in there, didn't it, local man?
Yeah, it definitely had some zest to it for sure.
Yeah, how's your car smell right now, Chris?
I'm probably used to it, but I have a feeling it stinks pretty bad.
Yeah, and you're down in Fort Myers. Is that what you said?
Yeah, we stopped here for the night. That way we could do this live stream. We're going to hit the road bright and early in the morning and head up and probably get into South Carolina and fill our car up with some supplies and stuff.
Yeah, if you want to swing by here near my mom's place too, we'll load you up with some pizzas again and some other stuff as well. And I know they have generators too at the Ace Hardware down here, so at least we're starting to get more supplies. So, folks, if you want to donate to Chris, his recovery effort, and Hannah, he teams up with his beautiful girlfriend Hannah, helps out a lot in the recovery effort as well. You went all the way up to Maine, right? Picked up an RV and then brought it down for some officers that needed a place to live.
Yeah, we went up to Maine. We partnered with another group. They're called Emergency RV. We got in contact with them back in the Kentucky floods. We actually went to New York to pick up an RV there for the Kentucky floods and brought it back to a family in Kentucky. We partnered up again here during this mega disaster. Went to Camden, Maine, which is maybe an hour from the Canada border. Rented a pickup truck and hauled that RV back down to let's see, I'm trying to think of it was right along the North Toe River there. Trying to think of the area. I think it was right outside of Roan Mountain. It's between Boone and the state of Virginia there.
Yeah,
But it was a real beautiful place up there. Big time damage. Delivered it to this family. I was shown pictures of the flooding there, and it was up to the rooftop, and the state trooper walked me around in there, and you could see the water line almost hitting the roof in the house. And the real elderly couple that lived there actually had to um, push out their back door to be able to escape and run up the hill to survive the flood. But they're going to
crazy.
completely tear down their house, and they do think they're going to rebuild. But they do have some shelter to go to that while they're rebuilding, because they're definitely going to need it. They're probably not going to get power or water back on there for a while.
Wow. And Edgar just popped in. I think that we are approaching 4,000 or so with the donations. So thank you, everybody. We definitely probably should have done this live a little closer to the event to get some more traction. And but we are going to continue to do these live streams to try to raise funds for the relief effort and to support heroes like Chris Hall, Shawn Hendrix, United Cajun Navy, Mercury One, Aerial Recovery Group. And I did have a FEMA personnel reach out to me, and he was just pleading with me to share a message that FEMA is there. They are on the ground. And that he said a lot of people are misunderstood on what their role is. And he said that the role of FEMA is just to bridge the gap between the disaster and when they're able to recover. But that also confirms the need for private citizens, private recovery efforts. And basically here in the U.S., you have a hybrid approach to disaster response. You have the private citizens out there, the organizations, the relief efforts, individual YouTubers even came together, right? You had Cheetahs that was out there. Remember flying a helicopter? We had Cletus from down in Florida. He built that helicopter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he built a chopper, refurbished it, brought it up, was flying it.
I don't know if you can see this or not. Back to what I was talking about just a minute ago. This was the house of the elderly couple before the flood, and that was afterwards. The water was actually up to their rooftop, and they're a good ways up the hill, and you can see the hillside here behind them. They had to push out that back to be able to climb that hill, and I mean that was a real beautiful house, mountainous area, real beautiful place. I got some more pictures here. This is, I mean, the inside of their house, absolutely caked in mud. Almost everything there destroyed. All their vehicles were destroyed. Everything. So I was really glad that we could partner up there and help them out a little bit, and also was happy to be able to partner up with Denny's again. Glad they got out there. And man, I'll tell you, they're always willing to go anywhere. If they need to go, they're willing to go. So those guys are really awesome, and glad to have a partnership with them as well.
Yeah, you have contacts with everybody. I mean, I saw it firsthand. Chris just reaches out to like the head of Denny's, and this truck rolls in, and everybody knows him in the recovery effort. And there's no better place to send funds than Chris Hall. Trust me on that. And so thank you, everybody, for donating. We've got the link in the description. That's a nonprofit, so it's tax deductible. You can also find Chris's Venmo on his social medias. Hello, Hannah. How's it going? And local man in his studio out there.
Yep.
Are you pumping out some beats?
Yeah, I was doing that before I jumped on here, and then I got pasta cooking in there, so it smells good in here right now. You know, the chef is here, is what's going on.
Yeah, Chef Boyardee.
Yep.
Yep. You're gonna talk like him?
Oh, the Chef Boyardee. Hopefully that boosts the live right there.
Yeah, boy, the chef really can get us through some tough spots, you know, even more so than Vienna sausages. I think they taste a lot better.
Yeah, 100%.
After Milton, you know, eating that cold beefaroni, it tastes so good.
It did. It really was right in the slot in the hotel, just, you know.
Yeah, and we can bring some Chef Boyardee up north because I know it's going to be cold up there. We have snow coming in, 2 to 3 inches of snow.
Yeah.
Chris is on his way north from Fort Myers, everybody. So if you want to help us out, definitely it's tax deductible. Just check out the link in the description. And this is our first fundraising live. We got Edgar that's going to come in and give us an update on the funds.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, so it's really good, man. Thank you guys so much already. We have already raised over $4,500 on this live stream.
Wow.
So that's just, I mean, honestly, that's amazing. Thank each and every one of you for that, because that money's all going to get put to good use. I know that that Chris is going to put that money to really good use out there. I'm so excited for that. But man, what an awesome stream so far.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you won the high school football game.
They did win. They did win. It was great. The football game's on Monday night because this football game was actually disrupted by Hurricane Milton. So they had to play this game on a Monday night. But yeah, it was great. What it was a great turnout. Yes, what a great turnout for this stream so far. I really appreciate everyone that's donated. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think we're going to phase out this live stream. My Gizmo needs to go out to the bathroom. And we'll be doing more of these, though, leading up. So we're just going to continue to try to raise funds for people on the ground for the citizen recovery effort. And Chris, do you have any closing remarks where people can follow you? Anything that you have left to say?
We're over on Facebook. Just look up 606 Storm Chasing. Twitter, Chris Hall WX. YouTube is the same way. And also, we're going to come to an end here. I just want to go ahead and say this. I'm going to pledge $250 straight to this as well. And I encourage everybody, if you can, to do that as well. I'm actually getting on here to do it right now. And if you can, that would be awesome, because the more that we have is definitely the more that we can help, and they definitely are going to need it. So
Thank you. I'll match your 250 too, Chris. So I'll put 250 in there as well.
I'm in also.
We're going to get this thing going.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We're going to continue to share this, and we'll share that donation link as well in subsequent social media posts. Thank you, everybody, so much. Never stop helping.
Never.
Peace. I don't know how to shut it down now. There it is. Thanks, Chris.
let's see it.
Thanks for everything. Good work. Good luck. Drive safe getting up here.
Appreciate it. Will do.
All right. Enjoy the amenities there.
All right.
A free breakfast in the morning.